Every winter, you do the same thing without even thinking about it. You turn up the heat, you watch the bill climb, and you accept that staying warm is supposed to cost you. You were trained to think that way, to believe comfort must come from a furnace, a gas line, a system outside your control that sends you a bill every month. But what if the most important part of heating your home has been sitting beneath your yard this entire time, silently holding the exact temperature your house is struggling to reach? Because the ground beneath your home is not cold in winter. It is stable. And once you understand what that really means, you will never look at your heating bill the same way again. 3,000 years ago, engineers in some of the harshest climates on Earth solved a problem that still drains household budgets every winter. They buried air channels in the ground and let the Earth do what it has always done: hold a stable temperature while the air above it swings wildly between freezing and heat. And if that sounds too simple to be real, that is exactly why almost nobody talks about it now. At roughly 4 to 6 feet below the surface, the Earth maintains a near constant temperature all year long, usually somewhere between 50 and 58 degrees Fahrenheit across much of the northern United States. This is not theory, it is thermal physics. Soil has mass, and mass changes temperature slowly. Once you go deep enough, seasonal extremes disappear and are replaced by a stable thermal zone. That means outside air entering your home in January does not have to start at 10 degrees. It can start at 50, and that single difference changes everything. Because heating systems do not create comfort, they close temperature gaps. If the outside air is 10 degrees and you want 70 inside, your system must close a 60-degree gap. But if that air first travels through a buried pipe surrounded by 55-degree soil, the gap may shrink to 15 or 20 degrees. And that is the hidden leverage. Not replacing heat entirely, but reducing the load so dramatically that the economics of heating change completely. Ancient Persia understood this long before modern engineering gave it a name. Builders used underground channels and wind towers to move air through cooler earth before it entered homes. And while those systems are often described as cooling, the principle works both ways. The ground does not cool out of kindness. It pushes air toward its own stable temperature, which means, in winter, it becomes a heat source. This was not lost knowledge. By the mid-20th century, agricultural bulletins in North America described underground air inlets in clear, practical detail. This was known. It was published. And then, it disappeared. Not because it failed, because it did not fit the business model that came after it. Modern heating depends on recurring dependence: fuel bills, maintenance, replacements, servicing. A buried pipe offers none of that. Once it is installed, there is almost nothing left to sell. And that is the problem. Because systems that eliminate ongoing purchases do not create markets, they destroy them. The numbers are what make this uncomfortable. In a properly installed system, outside winter air entering at 0 degrees Fahrenheit can leave the ground at 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not a small improvement. That is a complete shift in what your furnace is being asked to do. Instead of starting from extreme cold, it finishes a much smaller gap, which means less fuel, less runtime, and lower cost. And because the system relies on the earth, the energy demand is minimal. A small fan is usually enough. No burner, no compressor, no complex machinery, just a trench, a smooth pipe, and pipe and the ground. But there is one condition. It has to be built correctly, because air moving through a cool pipe creates condensation. If that water collects, you have not built a heating system. You have built a mold problem. That criticism is real. But the solution is simple. The pipe must slope continuously so water drains out. The interior must be smooth. The intake must be protected. When those conditions are met, long-term studies show these systems remain stable and hygienic for years. The difference between success and failure is not the concept. It is the details. A typical setup uses a smooth pipe, 6 to 8 inches wide, buried 4 to 6 feet deep, running about 40 to 60 feet. Air moves slowly through it, giving the earth time to transfer heat. And when it does, the results are dramatic. A system that once had to lift air by 60 degrees now lifts it by 15 degrees. That is why this matters for existing homes, because this is not just for new builds. If you have a yard and a place to run a pipe, the physics are already available to you. And that is what makes the silence around this so revealing, because this works on ordinary homes, in ordinary climates, where heating bills hit hardest. So the real question is not whether it works. The real question is why it disappeared. Building codes often do not ban it. They simply do not include it. No category, no standard, no approval path. When something sits outside the system, people assume it is not allowed. At the same time, entire industries depend on you staying connected. Monthly bills, recurring costs, permanent dependence. An earth tube does not replace everything, but it weakens that system. It reduces the problem before anyone gets to charge you for solving it. Once you understand that, it becomes difficult to ignore. The ground beneath your home has been offering free preheating every winter you have lived there. Every bill you paid happened above a thermal system that never sent you an invoice. So the real question is no longer whether this works. The real question is why something this simple was allowed to disappear. Because dependency is profitable, and systems that reduce dependency are rarely the ones people are taught. But the ground does not care about any of that. It holds steady. It always has. If you build it correctly, by the time next winter arrives, your heating system will not be fighting the cold alone. The earth will already be helping, quietly, constantly, for free.